The VAR Show, the one place for your weekly football update.
So hello, a very warm welcome to the VR show, the show which talks about all the various major football leagues in detail. Today we are going to connect with interviews and we have the founder and CEO of Zlait Sports Management and also an author, Mr. Nikhil Sharma with us. So without wasting much time, I would like to first thank Nikhil for coming on the show. Thank you and welcome to the show. And I would like to begin by asking you, how are you and what are you doing these days?
As is the case with everybody else, I'm okay. What am I doing? We're still trying to consider 6 months back, 7 months back. We were looking at a lot of work. We were preparing for this season. Uh, we do a lot with sports infrastructure. We were looking for a good year up ahead. As of now, we're still prepping up. Most of our players are going to play in the Indian Super League. The I League will begin soon as well. Um, so yeah, that's about it. We're preparing for. We have some projects on the ground as far as sports infrastructure is concerned, and then prepping for the next year.
Of course, that's good to hear. And I think the ISL and I League has never been so anticipated in the previous season as it is in this season because of the maybe the long wait for the tournament.
Right.
So like I'll get
We're all waiting.
yeah. So I wanted to get back to the beginning. And you've had a very like subcontinental sheer typical education route, like engineering, then MBA. How did you get into football?
Get into football. I was always he played a level cricket, and I keep tracing back my interest in football to the 90s. He visited Italy at that point in time during the World Cup 1990, and he came back with a lot of stories, and I got attracted to the sport. I played a lot of sport, never good enough, but I played quite a bit, and then got attracted. Football was my primary sport because in Pune, where I grew up, the school sport is usually football or hockey. Schools didn't play as much cricket as the rest of India would. So we played a lot of inter-school football, inter-house football, and other individual games, and that's how I got attached to it. And I take the, as you said, the more normal route of an engineering and an MBA degree. But I always wanted to work in the sporting ecosystem. Sports management, I was really fascinated by it, and you find your way through the whole thing, and sometimes it's also your destiny. You're lucky enough to kind of find people. You're lucky enough to find opportunities, and maybe in my case, I kept trying and got the opportunity at the right time, and made the best of it. That's how I'm in football. I mean,
Sure. And I'll get back. Was football something that you always wanted to do, or did you see that happens? Some spontaneous. Like you said, like you always wanted. You had that dream of maybe being involved in some capacity or the other, maybe in the future. Did you always want to work for it, or it just happened? Like your first, at least your first capacity.
Always. If you'd asked me like in year 2000, would you be working in football? I would have not said yes, but football's always been my number one sport, along with an individual sport like possibly table tennis or badminton. Football was my number one sport. That's the sport I played the most in school, in college, after college. It's the sport I spent the most time following European leagues, Indian leagues. So I always wanted to work in sport. Had you said to me back then, I will work in Indian football or football overall, no, but I kept my trying all over. And as luck would have it, because that I had a fair bit of understanding of Indian football, and that's how I got into it. And I kind of one thing led to another. So it was always sports management. And if I had the opportunity, it had to be football. Thankfully, it was football. That still consists of majority of the work that we do.
And you said you have been following football, the European football or the outside Asian football for quite a while now. How different? And now since you have been involved in football in some form or the other at least in India, how different are the cultures in your experience to what you have maybe seen and what happens here?
Look, it's something that I've explained quite a bit in the book as well. India's Football Dream. Predominantly, culture is what drives the sport. If you look at places, it's never been, somebody's put in gazillions of dollars, and that's what has driven the sport at the lowest level. Not at the elite level, but at the lowest level, is driven by wherever you found culture, the sport has thrived, and it's similar all across. Whether it's in the mines and the factories of Manchester, whether it's in Serbia, whether it's in France, whether it's in Kolkata, whether it's everywhere there's a community, and that community is kind of taken to football. It's never that one isolated person collects 11 people, they start playing football, and that kind of snowballs. It's never been that. Where there have been people, they have culture, and over a long period of time, those communities have taken to football. So that's one single binding factor for how sport. Of course, everyone is at a different level altogether. India is doing exceptionally well at the sport, but it's also the fact that we're such a huge country. The culture in Nepal might be similar for the following. It's the number one sport. To West Bengal, to Northeast, barring possibly Assam or Tripura, the rest of them, it's their number one sport. So there are pockets here, but it's the number one sport in Nepal. Yeah, it's followed a lot in Bhutan, Bangladesh as well. It's really followed. It's a sport that a lot of people take to. So culture is similar. It's how much professionalism, what's been done with the leagues, what's been done below the top leagues and the grassroots level that kind of separates most countries today. So we're running fast. There are countries that are running faster. So it's a question of that's the only thing I feel which is different. When you look at England or you look at Spain, that's 150 years of organized football, or at least 120 years of organized football. And then there's a lot of curation, there's a lot of shaping up the structure. We have a little bit of history as well, and we're still in that process of evolving.
And of course, like cricket is like the major sport in India, whether it's
Right.
officially recognized or not, but it is the number one sport in India.
Of
Like,
course.
and
There's no denying it.
and it's like the cost of the finances involved in cricket, maybe just to play a game, is much more higher than maybe the finances involved in playing a football game. Maybe like the
Right.
ball is cheaper. Do you think? And with the economic condition, maybe in the Southeast Asian market, like you don't like money is not easy to come around. Like people
Right.
are like held back because finances. Do you think like football in the longer run is much more of a ticking bomb which will boom in comparison to maybe cricket, because
Right.
anyone can play football, like you can play anywhere, you don't require a ground to play football? Do you think
Right.
something like that will happen?
It's very tough to say, Subhashish. Why do I say that? It's very tough. Such a huge thing into a small little theory. Is football playing easy? Yes, it is. It's a very simple ball run. If you really have to define, of course, there are lots of nuances in terms of for you to understand in terms of rules, etc. What's happened with cricket is predominantly in the subcontinent, it's taken off. There are few things that worked in its advantage, and the advantages, of course, are that it's a sport that was played by the Commonwealth countries. India, there's some qualities that we'd have, or the subcontinental countries will have, which is does it require the football level of physical conditioning? Maybe not. Although in the current day and age, cricketers are so much more fitter than they were previously. It requires hand-eye coordination. All of us are generally better at that. We're gifted at that. And of course, it's when your nation is successful at the sport, and the sport has been commercialized well, and a lot of younger kids who are coming up, and their parents, they tend to encourage you to play a sport where they feel you might have a chance to grow exponentially. Culture again plays a huge part. So if you were in England, the sport does great. You can become professional. Even if you were to play in the third level or the fourth level, you'll have a decent lifestyle. There is access to good coaching. Your family, which is your father or your mother, understands the sport. So they can explain to you exactly how to start. So you can start inside, you've got to run, you've got to face, you have to make angles. All of that because you play. Now, for us, maybe second generation, third generation now, it might be easier. But otherwise, a lot of us didn't understand the sport. Now, if you were to go, in any Indian family today and ask a father to kind of demonstrate a forward defensive shot in cricket, relatively easier. The chances are he'll know it. The same kind of technique, the simple technical knowledge being passed out to kids is easier, and I would say so, of course, for somebody who's played football. So it's easier for me to pass on to my kids, etc. In Nepal or in Bhutan or Bangladesh, whoever's played the sport at a little bit of a level, even school level, he can explain it. But a lot of them hadn't played the sport, so it's a slow process. It takes time. Do finances work? I'd like to believe, but you have examples in the subcontinent itself, and that's not true. I mean, you look at Pakistan, you look at India, uh, you know, Bangladesh. These three nations, or Sri Lanka for that matter, they're not rich countries. You shouldn't be able to afford the kind of expensive equipment that cricket expects, and yet the sport is at a different level altogether. So I think people find a way if they have to. So, but football is the global number one, right? It's the global number one, even in a country like China, where table tennis and basketball have huge numbers. Football is very popular now, so it will grow. There's no doubt about it. Now, what do you call exact growth is whether you play in the World Cup or you have X number of people playing the sport. That depends on a lot of other factors.
Of course, and I think the general concept is because cricket may not be so widely followed all over the world in comparison to football. I think that
Correct.
maybe gives football a bigger, maybe winning a football World Cup is more prestigious than winning a cricket World Cup. Like, because of the following it has all over the world.
I mean, I never look at it that way. It's simple thing to say, oh, well, there are only 10, 11, 15, 20 countries that play cricket. But those 10, 11, 15 countries, whatever, whether it's 20 as well. In India, if I, because we haven't won the football World Cup, we don't know. But it's crazy if you win the cricket World Cup, right? And it's crazy when you don't win the cricket World Cup. So that basically means everything. We're talking about a sport where if you look at numbers of cricket matches in terms of just something like on Hotstar, you'll be talking in lakhs. The same number when it comes to football might be in thousands. Even with a Premier League club playing, and I'm just talking about a very small thing. We're not looking at the bigger system. So, of course, winning the FIFA World Cup is extremely tough. But can we belittle another sport and say it doesn't mean as much? No, I don't think so. If you win the cricket World Cup, it means a lot to anyone in the subcontinent. You ask, and more number of people are clued in, and that's the truth as of now.
Of course, and I'll get to the leagues. And you have worked you have had an experience in both I League with Shillong Lajong and ISL with Northeast United in various
Right.
capacities. Like,
Yes.
in your opinion, how different were your experience? Like working in two different teams, maybe with two different set of finances involved. Like, it must be very
Correct.
different.
Correct. So, well, yes, I League. When I joined in, it was a very interesting league. It is an interesting league. If you ask me, I League is a league wherein a lot of young players get opportunities. And back then, there were few established teams. There were the Dempos of the world, the Mohun Bagan, East Bengals, Churchill Brothers. All of them very well established teams that had a lot of budgets. And then there were, the upcoming teams as well. And a lot of teams from Northeast were making their presence felt. And at Lajong, had the budgets. We didn't have a lot of money, but I think we did the right thing. We were promoting a lot of academy talent, bringing in players when they were young. A lot of churn used to happen. So a lot of them came in. A lot of them who didn't do well at the youth level were moving out. So we had a good team. We had a good club. We had a motto. We had good interaction with the industry as well. We had a good interaction with the fans who saw, Lajong as a place that was presenting the face of the Northeast. So yes, the budgets were a constraint, but we were doing so much more that meant to the community, that meant to the fans across the Northeast. And it was the first club that basically came out of the Northeast and represented the region. That means a lot for sport, where, as I said, community important.
Of course, Anil, I wanted to ask you, like, I have a friend, he's in UK, he's studying, he's from Shillong, and he's studying over there in terms of football, and he's doing his degree and everything. And he wanted to, he had a very, he holds a kind of a grudge or something. In one of the interviews, he wanted me to ask, not with you previously, he
Sure.
had this stuff called like where, why does only one team represent the full Northeast? Why is there only one Northeast United? Why not, like, there are so many states there, and who
Hmm.
in their own right have given so many good players to maybe India
Right.
or even the league, but why only
Right.
one to maybe like stereotype, okay, this is for the entire Northeast?
Well, I left part of that unanswered in terms of the Super League. Now, when the Super League was understand that commercially, which means in terms of monetization, money, the Northeast isn't, it has a population of around 4 crores, 4.5 crores. Uh, it isn't the most vibrant and wasn't even, as vibrant as it is today back in 2013 or 2014. Um, and even then, there were a couple of teams that had come up from Shillong, Sikkim as well. There were a few teams that were coming up, but predominantly, uh, because commercially, and the Super League had to be a certain level of, commercial commitment. The Northeast wasn't, the connectivity isn't the best. If teams have to travel, Guwahati, or whether it's Shillong, whether it's Aizawl, whether it's Imphal, the connectivity isn't the best. So if a team wants to play, it's not like London, Manchester, wherein you get into a plane, into a train and or a bus and get there in a few hours. Unfortunately, sometimes you have to travel for a day. If you wanted to go from Shillong to Kochi to play a game, you had to get down through road to Guwahati. Then you had to go from Guwahati to Bombay, from Bombay to Kochi. And sometimes, while it sounds very easy, it can take like morn to night. And for players having played a game to get into a plane and go all the way back and forth, that's recovery time wasted as well. So, given logistics and how tough it is to travel, I don't think overall the Northeast was in the plans. But we kind of spoke hard about it, and that's how Guwahati was included in the Super League. The level of the Super League was at that point in time very different. It is different right now as well. The match quality, the broadcasting quality, just the overall atmosphere, the kind of people that are involved, was certain levels. Reliance's personal involvement along with Star and IMG at that point in time were incredible. Unfortunately, at that point in time, the I League, was waiting to break through, but did it actually break through? It didn't. It was not. It was. There are lots of things. We cannot just blame a product for it. There were a lot of things that were happening around them. Of course, Super League came about. Do I think that every state can have a team in the top division of India? Um, well, currently, if you consider both the I League and the ISL, there are lots of representatives of the Northeast. And I think he should look at it saying, when the time's right, of course, a lot of those teams could also be playing in the Super League. And nobody should be, there should be nothing that should stop them to continuously develop and go out and play in the Super League. But they're playing in the I League, and they're developing a lot of talent, and the opportunity does exist. So I think that's the criticism or the grudge is a little unfounded, because Northeast now contributes to a lot of teams and a lot of players in both the divisions. So it's just a matter of time, and of course, things are also take their time. It's not something that can happen overnight.
Of course, and I'll move to another topic, and this is my personal opinion. And like there have been a lot of mergers, or the idea being floated around. Especially you had ATK and MB merged, and I think
Yes.
there are rumors of Chennai FC and Chennai City FC merging. I don't know whether it's true or not, but the rumors are floating around. Do you think like these mergers are more detrimental than beneficial, as it reduces the number of big profile teams and the potential of bigger city derbies, which probably could increase the fanfare?
Um. So yes and no. Uh, of course, mergers. See, it's not a new thing. Mergers have happened across the world between clubs, and they've happened for different reasons. It could be financial. It could be the fact that a single entity could present so much more to the city than what two different ones could have been. There are, of course, you know, um, cities in the world wherein mergers can't even be thought of. You cannot think that Fenerbahce or Besiktas or Galatasaray will merge, or that Chelsea, Tottenham, or Arsenal will merge. But that's a lot of historical evidence there. Uh, on the other side, look, uh, football now is a big time commercial financial commitment, and one in an ecosystem that's not excuse me, that's not necessarily rewarding at this point in time, that you can earn a lot of money. Sponsorships are not easy to come. It's not that the fans are paying a lot of money to come into the stadium. If you look at Calcutta, uh, it's tough in terms of the fans. There's so many strong religious fans there, but is the commercial opportunity huge from ticket paying fans? It's not. In India, if you look at the overall numbers, and football is way down that pegging order, merchandise and ticket revenue would contribute to not more than 8 to 9% of the overall revenue. Football even lesser. Now that number, if you go to even the middle rung clubs and leagues in Europe or somewhere else, that number is much, much, much higher. So that presents with a struggle of sorts for clubs to stay relevant, to stay, to compete, and that in itself presents organizations with an opportunity to say, hey, how can we come together and chart out a path for ourselves wherein we can go stronger forth. In which case, it makes complete sense. ATK, represented by a very strong corporate house in Mohun, represented by a very strong culture-defined club, come together and say, why don't we take the path forward together? The challenge, of course, is you had two big clubs that's now become one. So the opportunities for players is lesser. The number of teams have become lesser. I will not speculate about what's going to happen in Chennai City, because these are only rumors as of now. So I don't know, and I'm not in a position to comment. We know about what's happened at ATK and Mohun Bagan, and let's hope for the best. Uh, you know, Mergers and acquisition across the a lot of them work, some of them don't work. We cannot move into something with negativity, so we have to hope that it works. From my side, the only negative, of course, is clubs in India subcontinent, because the more number of football clubs, the more number of players, because they're developing, that presents more number of elite players to the national team, and that's how the ecosystem can develop at the top. Barring that, I it's I won't say it's an experiment. It's happened previously as well, uh, but we will find out. And I think it's largely positive. It's a strong group, ATK.
Of course, and like you have been involved in ISL and played a major part since season one for various clubs in various capacities. In your opinion, how has the ISL grown? Like maybe in terms of maybe fanfare or the sponsorship or broadcasting. How has it grown since the first season when it started till now?
Look, when we talk of ISL or the this Indian Super League, we've got to see that leagues across the world take a lot of time to kind of take shape. So it's only been 6 years. This is it's there's still time for the league to develop and grow better. How has it grown? There are a few things that are glaringly out there in terms of the positives that the Super League has. One, the players are well taken care of. They stay well. There's an input of coaches, staff predominantly, where the knowledge is increased. So you'd see typically if you went back 10 years, an off season meant an off season. So the players were happy. They were eating, moving around like they want. You will not see that now. You will see a lot more aware players. They know I can't go to a preseason with a little bit of fat here and there. I can't be a slouch, so they're training in the preseason as well. Although in this time the preseason become really long, but a lot of players have kind of spent some time or the other in varying degrees to stay fit. So that's knowledge. They know what is required of them when they reach there. You'll still find a few relaxed, but on the whole, you'd find good people like that. Two, the broadcast quality of the league is brilliant. There, no effort has been spared to kind of say it should look a great product on television. Sports, football in specific, is a visual medium. What happens on TV is what people see, is what is relevant. Three, match day organization is superb, which means when you walk into a stadium, the quality of the match, the dressing rooms, the overall look and feel, how the experience that a person feels is incredible. That's at a level which uh, across you can see across a lot of other popular leagues, and so that was brilliant. Those 3-4 things are what I'd say definitely separates the Indian Super League. It is, it's attracted a lot of the talent. Now, of course, the season is longer, so that they've kind of taken shape into the normal footballing ecosystem calendar that the world sees. So that's brilliant as well. And overall, I think the players have been well looked after. Their salaries, uh, their perks, their bonuses, their training, their travel, their food, their stay. And in the end, sport is all about the guy in the middle. Everybody else, like us, are are at the sides, whatever our position is, whether as fans, etc. Uh, in terms of fandom, you'd see some clubs have incredible fans, whether it's Goa, whether it's Kerala, Mohnbagan, East Bengal. Um a lot of clubs effort on on fan development. Whether it's a new club uh, like Odisha, whether it's Jamshedpur. So uh, that's a positive as well. The match happens at a good time. People come in. There are regular engagement. Social media has helped a lot. Maybe 10 years back, the impact of social media was not much. There's so much the players and the teams are doing that's going directly to the fans or people who are getting attached to the club. Now, whether they're supporters, they're fans or they're members, that kind of. So all in all, is it a positive flip? Most definitely it is. The kind of money and the finances that have been spent on running a property like this is incredible.
Of course, and like you are also like if the founder and CEO of Zlait Sports Management. How did that happen? Like, and why?
Well, I was lucky enough to kind of get into the sports management side of it. I joined Anglian in 2000, late 2012, 2013, and soon enough, I found myself on the board at Lajong, and by 2014, Northeast United was incepted, and we did quite a lot of work in sporting. We'd gotten brands like AstroTurf to India. By 2018 is when I kind of figured that maybe it's also important to kind of move in a direction which aligns with my vision. And the the easiest way to do that is to be the captain of your own ship. And that's how I kind of vision to work with players, to work in infrastructure, to work in consulting, to work in sports and marketing, maybe even in sports education, sports management education, and to kind of give all of that a little bit of shape. is Zlait, and that's what I started in 2018, and here we are. We're trying to find our feet and do things well. With God's grace, we've been fairly successful, and hopefully we should be doing all right going forward.
Of course, Anil, I was speaking to Parth Jindal, and he said, like, it's like the amount of finances involved in the ISL is so high for a player that they would not probably go to a second division or maybe even some of the top divisions in Europe if they get a chance permitting
True,
all the work permit. Do you
true,
think that is a
true.
problem, maybe, which may hold back the Indian players because they would probably play at a higher level, maybe, but with lower financial security compared to India?
True. He's 100% right. And the reason I say that is because we've experienced it personally. I am not sure if you know it, but I think in 2012 or 13, uh, Rohit Chand had also gone to FC Westland. At that point in time, it was owned by the group, a certain equity, and both Subroto and Gormangi went there as well. And how it started predominantly is to say FC Westland said, "Can you find us some players from India?" And he said, "Sure, we can find you some players." And then we discovered that a lot of Indian players were very well paid, especially even in the I League back then. They were, at least their salaries on their contracts were much higher than the guys who were playing in the bottom division, bottom bottom table clubs in Denmark, top division. And FC Westland at that point in time was in second division. So, would it make sense for somebody to fly all the way there and play in second division or first division or even top division when here you can make so much more money? And let's be honest, a player's career is not like a manager's or like a journalist that can go on forever. So it happens for a certain period of time, and then they want to make the best of it financially. But there have been exceptions, like Gurpreet Singh Sandhu, who's gone out and made a very strong effort to kind of break through that glass ceiling. He could have made so much more money back home, but he didn't. And the difference is to be seen today. He's India's number one for a reason that he spent a lot of time back in Norway, playing for a top division team. So is it detrimental? Yes, it is. It's tough to kind of, but there are some boys. I mean, it's a question of when will that breakthrough come in, and I'm sure a lot of them will make an effort to play there. Also, look, football is an industrial sport. If I was from a well-to-do, comfortable family, the money aspect wouldn't matter to me. But most footballers and the ones that really go and do really well don't come from the most financially affluent families. So it kind of, money plays a huge part in their decisions as well. So you can't hold it against them for that.
Of course, I was very curious. Like you were involved with the IS in the first league, and like in the initial phases, at least they were getting all these superstars who probably would had retired at least a few years
Correct.
back, and that
Correct.
okay as they're basically nothing more than eye candy, and probably it was like you get the fanfare, but it dies out. I mean, like if you like Roberto Carlos was an amazing player, and probably you getting him was very good for the league, maybe promotional wise, but you begin to question the league probably because that guy retired like quite a while back. So do you think
Sure.
like moving away from those type of signings has helped the league grow and probably that is the way forward?
Um, so again, I would kind of balance it out, and I would say for every Roberto Carlos, and look, Roberto Carlos predominantly came in as a coach. The fact that he was assigned as a marquee player is a little bit you're playing the system. He qualifies, and that's why you put him there because there's a salary cap there. There are lots of permutation combinations, but for every Roberto Carlos, you would have an Ilano, you'd have Maluda, you'd have Northeast United had Joan Capdevila. And I must tell you, it's not just on the ground. And of course, Joan was possibly at the end of his playing career, but he went and played for a Belgium top division club after that. And a fantastic professional, a fantastic professional. I cannot, stress enough that he brought in a lot. He was the greatest thing about the greatest players are the ones at the absolute top is that they're very humble. They don't look at themselves as prima donnas. So and I'll give you example, Juan, um, he could have very easily said, I want a car and I will travel separately. I will not go with the team, things like those. And maybe we would have accepted it as well. He never did that. He sat in the bus with the team, whatever bus, whichever way. And then a lot of players pick equipment, right? When you go out to train for your training, Juan would always do that. He would always pick equipment and place it back. If he didn't, would anybody say anything to him? No, nobody would. But that's how he was. A very interesting incident is, of course, at that point in time, one of the youngest players in that team was Radim Talan. He didn't play much. We were in Calcutta, and I say this only to kind of point out what kind of a person a player like that is. He's a World Cup winner. He's not a simple guy. Um, there were a lot of boots players were buying at the guy had come over, and Redeem, a nice little young boy who's not on a high salary, was looking that they were selling. And Yuan walks in, he's also having a look. He's contracted, so he doesn't need to buy any. He's got his own, the company's given him a lot of boots. So he walks in casually, there are lots of players, and here's Redeem. He's looking at, the cheapest boot available. And Yuan walks in and says, okay, which one are you taking? So he says, I think this one. And Yuan says, so pardon my language, Yuan says, that's shit. You buy this one. And that was the most expensive one. And Yuan said, don't worry, from me. So that has, stayed with me for such a long time, because that's a World Cup winner showing a young boy who's just, on his first or second year of professional football, what it means. And Capdevia, actually bought him those shoes. I don't know if Redeem still has it. If it was me, I would keep them. But I saw Florent Malouda play. Fantastic. Whether it was a 3-month season or a 4-month season, when he had the ball, there was a different spark to it. I'm a huge Alessandro Del Piero fan. So when I saw him play, I found it to be brilliant. The other side, of course, is a lot of them, and I could count at least 10, 15 of those. Elano, the first season especially, was unplayable. Now he's a marquee player, but he was unplayable in that league for whatever it's worth. I could say Lucio was a brilliant example. A lot of players at Goa told me he was very good. There was I think Northern Irish international at Kerala, and I seem to have forgotten his name a lot. Do you remember his name?
No. I think Ian Hume was there in the first season. Yeah, in at Kerala.
I'm just saying, but
Yeah.
there was it's stupid that I've forgotten his name, but I heard so many good things about him, and so many good things. A lot of players now, because they are marquee, they're designated marquee. They come at a huge budget. Uh, the media becomes very strong on them, and we're very willing to write them off. But Diego Forlan came and he scored a lot of goals. So there's nothing wrong or right about it. It depends on you. And I think the option should be given if somebody wants to bring in somebody and that kind of adds value to the club. I think there's no harm to it. But the league's getting. We had cases of not so great foreigners back then as well. But now the league's very strong in terms of the players that they're getting. They're getting players not like past their prime long back. They're still at an age where they're extremely competitive, and you cannot get somebody who'd be a journeyman now. So you have to have somebody who's doing well for the club.
Of course, actually, the main question, when I asked the question, the one person that sticked out was Robert Pires, because he had played in 2011 and
Right.
league was in 2014. So it was quite a while before he came back, and I think he was 40, and it doesn't look like it looks weird in the eye that you are a young league and you are wanting to grow. Yeah, of course, he adds value to the league probably more than any other player, because he's a huge name all over the world.
Correct.
So yeah, that was the one
correct.
that stuck out for me.
Yeah, look, if you today go out and try and make a new team or a new league, or you're even building a new house, you would make some mistakes. If the mistakes cost you a lot, people will look at you and say he's a fool. But you might have made a brilliant house, which a lot of people haven't seen. Robert Perez, is when he's Robert Perez. When he moves around, you have to see the number of people that want to come and see him and shake his hands and get his autographs and things like that. Goes right. It can always say that that didn't work, but it was a good effort. I'd say yes. There are some things that were possibly, you kind of found your way out. In Rize did really well. He played for 2 seasons, so mixed bag there. I would say it was not a bad idea.
And you're like staying with football. You also had the futsal league. What happened to that? I think it was just one season and then it stopped. Like you had the futsal,
Futsal league.
yeah,
Are
or
you talking
the
about the Creators League?
no, you had like Paul Scholes and
Okay,
Falcao
okay.
come over, right? Was it just
Right.
one season?
I think it was a couple of seasons. I think it was two
Okay.
seasons. So 2 seasons there. I don't know. If you ask me, I don't know. I was not involved in it. Also, I think futsal, there was a little bit of uh, uh, not a disagreement, but the official league and the unofficial league, and uh, but those, it was. I saw Ronaldinho play one game, and I said he came out wearing a pair of Nike Air Force Ones, and I was like, is he serious? Is he going to play? And he scored a hat trick in that game. He scored 3 goals, and when he got the ball, he did what he had to. Uh, you know, but I don't know much about it, so I can't say what happened to it and why it did. Hopefully, we'll have futsal. Futsal is a great sport to develop football as well, and even in isolation, it's a great attractive sport. So I hope we develop that well.
No, because the first season was like in terms of the players and the marquee names, just quite good. They got Falcao, who probably I think is the player of foot. Like maybe what
Futsal,
Pele is to football, Falcao might be to
correct?
futsal. Like, yeah,
Futsal,
like so that was like quite attractive. You had Paul Scholes come in. Of course, he's not a traditional orthodox futsal player,
orthodox,
but
right?
I mean, to get him ahead, like maybe instead of ISL futsal getting, that's a very big thing.
Yeah, but look, Paul would have said, "I have 20 days, I have 10 days, I can do that." It's the format wherein you move cities, so he doesn't, he do not want to commit for 4 months and 5 months. A lot of those players are also there, and sometimes you look at it and say, "All right, 10 days, 20 days, it's not a bad thing for me. I can go there, and uh, you know, uh, financially, it might have made good sense for him too." So yeah, it works out well.
Do you think like the new generation, like like who have access to probably more television or more content all over the world, are moving towards football in general than maybe cricket? Because you see, like you to have a futsal league or to for some of them to invest, like to have two leagues running and probably fighting to be claimed as the first league, I League and ISL. That means there is an audience that is watching and they want to like tap into it. So do you think like the newer audience are more fascinated by football than maybe cricket?
Generalized statement. Again, it's tough for us to kind of say yes, because we work in football, we'd like to believe it. We'd say, yeah, the newer generation. Of course, there's data which proves that in the at least in the metros, football's being taken as a sport, uh, and that's also driven by the fact that the international clubs have really done well. There's an attractive proposition in Premier League, etc. So you see a lot of younger kids wearing jerseys, etc. Even cricketers, for that matter, you'd see them in a Manchester United jersey or a Barcelona jersey. So on the whole, the sport is very attractive. There's a lot of pizzazz in the sport as well. It's glamorous, but uh, you know, is that true for everybody? Maybe not. Is that true in certain pockets? Yes, absolutely. You'd see the trend of following football in metro cities, but that doesn't mean that a Delhi or a Bombay or a Calcutta or a Bangalore or Hyderabad stop playing cricket. No, it's a very very it's easier said than done, but the magnitude of the sports are very different. It take a long time. Of course, when I moved into the industry, I would have said 1-200 is cricket, and then excuse me, the other sports that would be 1 to 10 now, and the other sports kind of start moving in. But in the sheer magnitude and the money that is spent in the World Cup, in cricket internationals, is astounding. There's still a long way to go for somebody to kind of reach that level. It'll take time, but hopefully with a lot of young, futuristic leaders, it'll be a possibility.
Of course, and there's a global pandemic going on. And how has that affected your management company and how you work and maybe your ideology of what you wanted to achieve? Has it affected you?
Oh, that's how I started off. I said 6 months back, 7 months back, we were looking at a good year overall, as a financial year. And here we are with, a lot of our projects delayed over 4 or 5 months. A lot of projects that we were, on the verge of kind of getting and working on them have been staged. So football overall, with only the top two leagues, uh, I League, we still don't have a perfect date as to when it'll start. There's only speculation. So players have lesser opportunity. There's, the ISL, of course, class leading that way in terms of it might be the first league to kind of magnitude to start. The I League 2 qualifiers happened. So yes, of course, it's impacted us. But sometimes it also gives you an opportunity to sit back and ponder and say what can happen. What are we in the business for? What can we do? So we made, as I said, every time if somebody asks me how are you doing, I said not good, not bad. So we're there or thereabouts. But I have no doubt we would have looked at a very good year if the pandemic hadn't happened. But it is what it is. We must kind of be happy and thankful, and that everybody should stay safe. We'll always have time for sports and for everything that we want to do going forward.
And of course, and in one of your earlier answers, you also referenced your book, and you have also you have co-authored the book India's Football Dream.
Football dream.
How did that happen? Did you always have the aspirations to write a book? Because I've seen,
Never,
like, do you? I don't.
never.
Okay, just answer that. I have a follow up to that already. So
You have
you,
a follow up into that.
yeah. So
So never had any aspiration to write a book. Sorry, let me start that again.
yeah.
So no, I never had any aspiration to write a book. Never ever. My co-author, I met him. I've known him for quite some time, and he came up to me and said, there's very few that kind of write about Indian football. Why don't we do that? And I was like, yeah, but I'm not an author. I'm a sports management guy. So he said, and how does that stop you from writing a book? And I said, well, so it took me a long time because I'm not an author. I'm not a journalist even. So, but he convinced me, and we finally agreed. We also had a few researchers to help us out, to work with us on the project, and we got along. When I first started writing, I would write like 100 words in a day, and then thrash all of them. They were rubbish. By the end of the time we were finishing our book, I would on some days even write 500,000 words a day, and a lot of that kind of when we were editing seemed all right. It didn't seem too bad. So yeah, that's how the book happened, and we were lucky that page, and Vitasta came on page and it was published a couple of times on Amazon. It became a bestseller. And sports books, it's really tough to sell, so it's not bad.
Of course, and the follow up which I mentioned was like, do you have to be an MBA to write a book? Because I see only MBAs writing books in India.
My God, that's a bad trend. Then if only MBAs write books, or do you consider Chetan Bhagat to be an MBA? That's why. Is that where it's coming
Yeah.
from?
I mean, like, those are the sample space that I was working with. Like.
No, of course not. You should be an MBA to be writing books, to be very honest. But excuse me. That's I'm sure J.K. Rowling hasn't done an MBA. I'm sure a lot of Agatha Christie didn't do an MBA. So a lot of people, you don't have to be an MBA, definitely, and and I wouldn't attribute. Of course, coming from the school that I came from, there's a lot that I learned there. It changed my life, Mike Ahmedabad. Uh, but would I attribute an MBA to my writing? Not really. There's lots of other things that management career helps you, but writing is a different beast.
So, do you have aspirations to write any other book in the future?
Now I do. now I do feel like I'd love to write a fiction novel, uh, but I get a lot of ideas. Earlier, I would get an idea and not remember it in 3 days. Now I've started penning them down that this is an idea. I kind of, you know, gadgets help you. So you kind of, every time I get an idea in 5 minutes, I don't remember it. So if I get something which is worth anything in my eyes, I kind of note it down. So someday I can go back to it. So finding all of those ideas also is tough because I've written in, earlier I would write them down on a notebook, and then in a notebook I cannot find anything back again. So yeah. I now I do have aspirations. Back then, India's football dream didn't come out of my own aspiration to write a book.
So of course we are getting to the end. I have two more questions, and the first two is in like it might be difficult to maybe it is quite a controversial question. Like, who do you think will win the ISL this year?
I don't know. I don't know. See, the thing, and the reason I say it is, uh, if you look at leagues across, you say who will win the Premier League. So there are 4, 5 extremely well-established clubs with great budgets, with great clubs, with great coaches. Uh, so it's easier to say, with great probability, one out of those 5. So then it's up to you. You would say, all right, Mourinho came in last year, so he's still not established. Tottenham is out. Arsenal, Arteta has just come in. So you would have so you can very tough to kind of bet huge variation from when kind of people say 1 to 20, who'll become. So odds are much higher for other teams. In the Indian Super League, that's not the case. The variations in, because of the salary cap and things like those are not huge. What I do feel is stability in management, stability in players. Some clubs do it better than the others, and they always kind of do better than a few of the clubs. And there, you never know what will come out. There's nothing happening. So there was a layoff. I think March, the ISL finished, and by the time it starts, it'll be like November. So we're talking about 8 months there. What happens is you don't know. So can I kind of predict it? No. Squads, yes, a few of them look better, but you can never count out, some of the others. Chennai, when they started off last year, nobody even thought that they'd have a run to the finals. They did it. Uh, you know, uh, Mumbai looks strong. They've got lots and lots of players. They have a great coach. Goa's gone young. Bengaluru will always be in the scheme of things. Always. Kerala has a huge fan base. They've kind of, reinforced squads. A youngish Odisha with good foreigners could present a huge challenge. ATK, never right. Now I say ATK, and that'd be a huge problem. So it has to be ATK Mohan Bagan. Always strong. Always strong, on paper. They have a coach who's won the ISL thrice. Uh, how can you even differentiate? It's just very tough for me to kind of say who will win. I don't know. I
Of course,
honestly don't know.
of course, and to wrap it up, like if you had to give, like at least the audience that I have encountered and the people I've encountered are generally sports centered, even during my college days, everything. And
Right.
everyone wanted to have a career like probably what you wanted because they have been to engineering now. They probably can't get into football and they have to get into maybe something of maybe management.
Correct.
So if they would want to get into football in the coming years, which probably would be easier than when you were trying because they were
100%.
limited, what advice would you give to them?
So my advice would be resilience, which is don't give up on your dreams. If you, but be aware what you want to do. Don't change every 3 months saying first I want to write a book, then you change and you say I want to do something else. Then at the age of 25, you say I want to be a. That's that doesn't make sense. Say what you like, what you want to do. Have clarity. Of course, nobody has 100% clarity of this is what I want to do. But I knew, I'm not going sports. Writing a book is not my bread and butter. I knew kind of I wanted sports management. Can I coach? No, I can't coach. That for licenses, I've done an FCC. I have, But can I coach? No, I can't coach. So I can't tomorrow decide I want to become a coach. So that's not happening. Have clarity of thought, be resilient, keep talking to people without asking for jobs all the time. Write something, or like what you're doing. I like what you're doing is to kind of present, you talk to people, you gain knowledge, you will also kind of, I will understand what you know, you will understand what I know. So keep talking to people, keep interacting, don't give up. A lot of times people don't respond. It still happens with us. So, it's a younger boy or a girl coming through will also face that. So don't be afraid to kind of, if you don't ask, nobody's never going to say yes to you. It'll only be when you ask when they will say no. You've been very persistent. I'm sorry. So you've always
Nice.
said, what's the time? 1 p.m. Can we do this then, etc., etc. I'm not a star, so I don't know why you want to interview me, but that's all right. I'm happy to talk to you, but sometimes we're all chasing different things. So keep being persistent, resilient, be positive. I think a lot of younger boys and girls get very negative about things around, and then they vent out a lot. There's no harm in venting out, but be objective about it. Don't keep blaming something else. You don't know what's happening with them. So don't keep saying, oh, that guy is this, that guy is this. Have concrete opinions, and then work them out. Keep try and be entrepreneurial. You can always do it in your own ecosystem. If you're a coach, you can take 20 kids and start coaching them. You can take some fees from them. You don't have to wait for a big club to come and make you a grassroots coach. You can always find something there. If you're a sports management guy or a journalist, you can always have your blog. You can always have your own business related sports page. And there's so many mediums now, or a social media page. So that kind of keep presents that you've done something great. If you're a journalist, of course, you can do so much. The opportunities, if you're proactive, are so much more now. Back then, one, we were clueless, we didn't know much. We knew we wanted to do this, so we were selling shampoos by the day, as an FMCG manager or marketing guy, and then we were hoping we would do something in sport and football. Know your local football. I see a lot of young boys and girls, their dreams and aspirations are always in Arsenal or in Liverpool. That's brilliant, and I wish you the best. But those are aspirations of millions and millions and millions of other. So you follow local football or any other sport that's local. There will be somebody to appreciate that local understanding more than the international uh, understanding. If you know your local Nepalese players, or really well, or if you can help them out, if you can manage their social media, if you can manage their um, Wikipedia pages, their stats, their videos, if you can push them through some of the they opportunities. I've seen so many bright young people, some of them work with me, and I look at them and I say, he's in college, how does he have all of this understanding? How does he, how I wouldn't even be able to talk to people straight when I was 20, 21, but some of the younger lot can do it. So I'm amazed. And at the same time, I'd say be persistent, keep going at it. If you really have a dream, you'll make it possible, whichever ways. Of course, the ways can be different. I wouldn't have imagined I'd be an entrepreneur sitting here at this age. Uh, but here I am, and now I think it's the best thing to have happened to me.
Of course, and I hope that rings a bell for many of them, like who have the same goals of or want to, like make a career, carve a career in football, maybe in India or in the subcontinent. So, like on that note, Nikhil, thank you so much for talking to me, and I wish you all the best for your upcoming, like all the players associated with you for the upcoming seasons of I League and ISL. And I hope you can write a second book soon, and so that I can read that as well as the first one. I haven't read the first one. I'll read that too. You don't
Come
get it
on,
in
then you
Nepal.
have to read the first one,
You
and
don't.
then
You don't get it in Nepal. Actually, that's the thing. I wanted to
you
order.
don't get it in Nepal, really?
No, that's the
That's
thing. And when
I
I
thought my books had for sale only in India and Nepal.
no, at least in Nepal, I was not able to find it. So next time I'm in
Okay.
India, I'll probably buy it and probably read it.
Next time you're in India, I will gift you a book as
Sure,
well.
sure. Let's see.
Yeah.
And like on that note, thank you so much for coming. Hope we can talk again soon. Take care. Stay safe. Bye.
Bye. All the best.
Thank you.